The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and happy Labor Day to those of you celebrating here in the United States. It's called Labor Day, and it's a day when most labor is given the day off, but we're here laboring, except asterisk, we pre-recorded this so that the team could take the day off. So you're watching this and it's pre-recorded, but I'm watching it too, and so you can still interact with me live. So don't feel like we've forgotten you. We haven't. We wanted you to have something really wonderful and fabulous today, because you might be home today, might have a free, and so this is going to be a great show. We've got great guests for you, and happy Labor Day. So I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. We're going to be talking about autism from a lot of different directions here, and we still want it to be interactive with you. So Traven's going to show you some of the different ways that you can connect and watch, and I'm going to just be honest that most particularly I'm going to be watching comments on Facebook and YouTube. It's easier for me on Facebook on the devices that I have, but I'm going to be looking at YouTube as well. But there's lots of ways to connect. So. And you can also be watching us on our live feature, which is on our webpage, autism-live.com, and you can be writing comments in there, and I will moderate those as well. So I think you know, if you watch the show at all, it's difficult for me to walk, talk, and chew gum at the same time, but since I won't actually be talking, because this is pre-recorded, I might be able to do the other. And I really enjoy that. Boy, I enjoy when I get a chance to talk with you guys in real time. It really makes me happy. So there's that. There's so many things that I want to say because there's so many things going on, but I hope that you're going to take some time today for yourself. I hope that you're going to do something for your family that is restorative or fun or just pure whatever. Because even though this technically isn't the end of the summer, for most intents and purposes, it's the end of the summer. So this is the last hurrah. It's the last opportunity to take a day and, find a community pool, or if you've got a pool, get in the pool, take a little bit of that time and enjoy the summer, because there's other things that are coming. They're going to be fabulous and cool and whatever, but they're not going to be these things. So if it means taking a walk, if it means, different things for different people. But enjoy this moment in time today, right? And, if it meets your schedule, be with us for this next hour because we've got cool stuff coming up. So we do like to start Mondays with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about. First, we give you the actual definition. Then I make as much fun of it as I can possibly muster, sometimes more than others. Then we give you a working definition, which often makes the experts scratch their heads and break out into hives. That's just an added plus. But hopefully we give you enough information so you begin to at least understand what this has to do with your life. And don't worry if you don't get it the first time, because you can watch these over and over again. And I think what generally happens is that we give you the definition and you go, not sure I get it. And then something in your life happens and you go, oh, I wonder if that's what she was talking about. And then something else happens and you go, I got it. Now I get it. Now I understand that's what that is and that's what she was talking about. And then it's yours. then it's yours. And I think it saves you time and money at that point, and that's really what the point's about, right? So today's term, task analysis. Doesn't that sound like fun? Doesn't that sound like something we all want to do? Let's take a look at what our actual definition for task analysis is. Task analysis is a process of breaking a complex skill or series of behaviors into smaller teachable units. Yeah. There's nothing really difficult about that. There's nothing super hard about it, but let's take it down another step so that it's just that much easier for us to understand and get into. So our working definition is a list of all the individual steps a child has to, or an individual has to take in order to complete a task or sequences of behaviors. So when I first moved to Los Angeles, my very first roommate, well, I had 2 roommates, but one of them was studying to be an occupational therapist, right? And so every week she would have an assignment, and they were always these task analyses that she would be asked to, given a task like brushing your teeth, and her homework would be to figure out the task analysis of it. So myself and the other roommate were always tasked. This is years, decades before I had a child on the autism spectrum, right? But so she would say, do you have a half hour you could spare for me? And so I would go in the bathroom, and she would say, okay, I want you to brush your teeth like you would normally brush your teeth, but I want you to do it in slow motion so that I could take notes of everything you do, right? And so I would reach very slowly for the toothbrush and take it out of the toothbrush holder, and I would put it down on and people do this in different ways, right? Some people take the tube of toothpaste and take the top off of it first and then reach, right? There are many different ways, but she would make these lists. Then I'll never forget the one where I had to take orange juice out of the refrigerator. And it was this whole step, things that I hadn't thought about that she had to get, because I reached for the refrigerator, but as I opened it, I had to pivot my hips. Otherwise, I would hit myself in the hip with the door. I never thought of that before. But the thing about it is, with a task analysis, is you take it down to that minutia, because if you're going to teach it to someone who's having difficulty being able to do this skill, you want to be able to identify where is the problem. And there's, if you're not getting it done, it's because there is a problem. Now, some people are just going to learn these things intuitively, although I'm sure that I have hit myself in the hip with a refrigerator door a time or 12 in my many years on this planet. But the reason why we do this, and by the way, they do this for all kinds of patients. She was going to specialize in working with people who had had strokes and were trying to recover skills that they once had before. But for kids with autism, it's being able to teach them how to be able to do it for the first time. I was explaining this to a friend of mine who had a young daughter, and I was talking about a task analysis for getting dressed. And I said, here's this really interesting thing that I read a task analysis for putting a shirt on. And I said, and I realized one of the things that I was doing wrong with my child is that step 1 in the process of this particular task analysis was to take my thumbs and put them in between the layers of the shirt, and then scrunch all the way up to the neck so that I'm holding one side of the shirt at the neck. And then the next step was to put it on over the head, and then one by one put the arms in, right? Now, that's not necessarily the way that everybody does it, but I said, I just realized I hadn't thought about that step, about the scrunching to get to the neck and then putting it over the neck first. I hadn't been doing that for him. So he was putting his arms in first and getting his head caught and being terrified, right? And this mom that I was talking to has a neurotypical daughter, and she went, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing, and that's exactly what's happening. So it's not that we aren't smart people, right? It's that sometimes we miss these little things that happen that are the teachable moment that makes the whole thing work. That's why we do a task analysis. That's why it's a list of behaviors. And if there's something that your child needs to be able to do and it's complex, or there's several steps to it and they're not being successful, the experts in your life are going to say, let's make a task analysis. Let's figure out what needs to be done, and then you find the gap. It's a really brilliant thing. And for little kids that have no experience with something and they can't do any part of the task, it's a way for us to do a process called chaining, where we're going to start at the beginning, the middle, or the end, and we're going to teach them one thing, and then we teach them the next thing, and then we teach them another thing. So we make this whole chain of behavior so that then they're able to get to what we call fluency, where they can do the whole thing as fast and as productive as anybody can do it. And we've taught it to them in a way that doesn't stress them out. And it works. It's a fabulous thing. So why do we do a task analysis? To be able to have that list. And if any teachers out there, man, this is it's so exciting, because once you have that task analysis, you go, oh, here's the part that isn't working. Here's the part that we missed. Here's the part that we took for granted and didn't notice, because for us, that might be easy. For somebody else, not so much. But once you give them that, man, it gets crazy. It's so good, right? So that's our jargon term for today. Now, moving on, we always have a question of the day for you, and our question today kind of goes hand in hand with this, and you're going to see this in a second. But our question is, what makes you feel overwhelmed? Now, what has that got to do with a task analysis? Sometimes we get overwhelmed because we're in the middle of a process where there's all these moving parts, and it feels like I don't know what to do next. And it's because one part of the task analysis is missing. And so we're lost. We can't get from step here to step here. Even, and I'm not like somebody who's a regimented person, but if you're really, really lost, sitting down and making a list of what has to happen and then checking it off sometimes helps with the overwhelmed. Sometimes. And maybe not for everybody. But what makes you guys feel overwhelmed? For me, what makes me feel overwhelmed is when I feel like I'm not going to be able to get it done. Like it's just so much and it's coming at me so fast, and it's like, I don't know if I can get this done. I don't know if I have what it takes to be the person who can get this done. And that's when I always have to take a step back and go, okay, then what can I do? What am I capable of doing right now? Let's do that. Because I can become the amazing paralyzed woman. I don't know about you guys. I used to do a talk called The Amazing Paralyzed Woman, because I'd be like, don't know, locked up, right? Couldn't do anything. And now I think of Dory in Finding Nemo, and I go, just keep swimming. Just keep doing what you can do, and that piece over here will get worked out. Just keep going, keep moving, do something. My mother used to say, do something even if it's wrong. I don't know that I subscribe to that, but keeping in action, because I can become the amazing paralyzed woman. Anyone else? Can I get an amen? Okay, so moving on, we have a topic for this week, and it's a perfect topic. I even referenced it last week. Our topic this week is one bite at a time. Now, I'm not talking about diets. Necessarily, but I love the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Even if something is huge, if you have a goal, something that you want to do, something that you want to work on, and I know that everybody watching this show does, because you're either somebody who is on the autism spectrum and you're having to overcome some challenges, or you care about somebody who's on the autism spectrum and you're trying to help them and yourself overcome some challenges. And these are often some big things, and they're big things that maybe other people don't have to deal with. But you can make so much progress towards your goals if we just remember that we don't have to do it all today, and that it all doesn't happen in one day, that it's strength over time, which equals power. That I love the metaphor of analogy of the mountain. And you stand at the base of the mountain and you look up and it seems like the top is so far away. It seems like it's impossible, right? But here's the crazy thing about when you start to climb a mountain. You can't see the top anymore. As you're going up the mountain and around the mountain, there are times when you can't see the top anymore. But if you keep putting foot over foot and keep going in the right direction, you do get there. It may take longer than you thought, but you do arrive there. So you have to do course correction and you have to see, am I going in the right direction? And that's a very important part of it, but movement is a part of it. One bite at a time. whatever's kicking your keister right now, I want you to take a deep breath and think to yourself, what can I do today? How can I do one bite today? I don't have to do everything, but it's one thing that I can do today. And what's one thing that I can put on a list for myself to do tomorrow, and then reinforce yourself for it, because that's the key, right? You have to get reinforced for movement. Otherwise, why would anybody do it? All right, you guys, we got a big show for you today. I promised you. We got some, can I be honest? We've got two amazing moms on the show today that inspire me on a regular basis. First, we have Bonnie Yates, who's going to be with us. She's a special education attorney, and she is going to be answering some questions that you guys did. And I think that we're also talking about the topic that we started last week, prior written notice. And she's actually given me something that I can share with you guys that's it's completely sanitized so that it doesn't identify anybody, but it's an example of what prior written notice looks like. It's kind of awe-inspiring. So we're going to talk about that. And then a little bit later on in the program, we've got an amazing mom who's going to be joining us. That's somebody that really inspires me on a regular basis. We're going to be doing more of these interviews because I just want to focus on people who inspire me and I think can be inspirational to you as well. People who just decided, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to really do this, and I'm going to do this in a different way, and I'm going to forge a new path. I just find that so inspirational. So that's what our show is today, and if we have time, we'll get to a mindfulness moment because we didn't get to one last Thursday. I'm painfully aware of that. But I'm so glad that you're here. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back with Bonnie Yates. Stick with us.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
What is autism?
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 I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone is
just a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Parent to parent, one of the most frightening things there is when your child wanders away or elopes. This is when they leave an area without permission. And we know science has shown that over 50% of children on the autism spectrum will engage in this kind of behavior. But we don't have to just accept it as fact. There are things that we can do to teach our children how to appropriately ask when they want to go someplace. But before we can teach, we have to know why they're doing it. Are they wandering away to go to something, or are they wandering away to escape something? Really important that we know that. And once we do know that, then we can put in place these really effective teaching strategies. I want to remind you, though, that if your child is engaging in this kind of behavior, it's really important to work with an expert. Get professional help. They'll be able to effectively figure out why your child is doing it and put an intervention in place that's effective. And when you stop and think about it, there's nothing more important than keeping our children safe. You might be asking yourself, a BIP, what on earth is that? Welcome back. We are back. Hang on one second, Bonnie. Bonnie and I were having a whole conversation here, and I didn't warn her, but we're back. So let me just introduce. Bonnie Yates is joining us. Good morning, and she is coming to us from the law firm from Hirji and Chow, let me say that properly, and they're an amazing law firm here in Southern California, in Culver City. And Bonnie, tell us a little bit about Hirji and Chow.
Hirji and Chow is a 6-attorney law firm. We're located in Culver City, California, and we serve individuals with disabilities in a lot of settings, in the public schools, through the IEP and 504 process, in the regional center, for the developmentally disabled, for those who qualify, and then we also represent students in college that have higher education issues. And we also do disability-related civil rights litigation. So we're able to cover a lot of bases because we have, different people that do different things. So is we offer people a complimentary consultation if they're in Southern California. So if you want to know more about what we do, our website is www.lawyer4children.com, and our phone number is 310-391-0330. We do want everybody to know that legal advice, we're talking to people about their legal rights. If you have a specific legal problem in your state, you need to go to www.copa.net, which is a good place to start looking for a special education attorney. And we do recommend that if you have concerns, you address them sooner rather than later, because oftentimes early intervention is good on the legal front as well as on the clinical front. Anyway.
Well, that's a really good point to make. I said that's a really good point to make. I don't know how often we make that point that, early intervention is key, and that it's key in the education setting, and it's a great argument to be made legally as well as clinically. So thank you for making that point. And we do have questions, Bonnie, and we also, there may be other things that you want to talk about. So which would you like to start with?
Respond to the last thing you said, because I flesh out quickly before we get to your questions what I mean by saying early intervention in the legal realm can be important too. If you can get some free advice and learn more about how the IDEA process works, you would be well advised to do that, because what times is, for example, a client will come to me and say a number of IEP meetings that were very illegal, and I say, well, did you record those meetings? And they say, no, we didn't. So it's going to be very difficult to prove what people said. The district will disclaim the things that people said. It doesn't matter if there's some documentation. It's not a substitute for knowing what was on the recording. So in California, the rule is that you can audio record a meeting if you give the district 1 day, 24 hours written notice. And people are reluctant to do that because when they start to record meetings, oftentimes the district will push back and say, are you sure you want to do that? And, you're making this adversarial. I can't emphasize enough how important meetings being recorded is. Similarly, people get in these kind of free and easy communication school, and they're parents of young children and they're busy. But conversations that you have with somebody that are not memorialized in writing are not going to help you after the fact. So that would be alone two things that people, if they came in and sat on and talked about what they should be doing. And the discussion goes from there. And the hard part for me is I get a lot of people coming in and saying, what would be a better district to move to?
Yeah.
And then I have to explain to them that even in the affluent districts in Southern California, the systemic problems are the same, because we've got an underfunded mandate and people that went into special education to be helpful, and then they crash into the fact that there aren't enough resources to go around, and that promotes a kind of behavior that can be misleading and not helpful. And to some extent, parents have to have that experience, that aha experience of realizing that the way the system is described as versus the way the system actually functions are not the same. And that's a hard realization. The last thing I'm going to say is, frequently I'll have extended conversations with a parent. They'll decide they're going to retain our office to represent them, and then something happens, like the district will offer a different placement, or there'll be some adjustment that's attempted, and more times than not, that person's situation is still not going to resolve, and they're going to come back later. But it's always good to know as much as you can about this process, and we view ourselves as wanting to fulfill IDEA's mandate, which is to create informed parents that can self-advocate. So that's why we want to spend time with you, because we want you to understand, for example, that there's a very strong thread running through the IDEA that parents are supposed to receive informed consent so they can participate in an informed way. And that's why I talked last week about prior written notice. So that's why it can be good to collaborate early on. And remember, just because you go and talk to an attorney does not mean you're going to take adverse action against the school district. That's not what it means. It just means it's a way to get your legal questions answered in a legal manner. If you go and ask the principal what the rules are, I can guarantee that person is going to give a different answer than me. Well, I can't guarantee it, but it would be probable. Anyway, so this first question I'm going to read, it says, I have the opposite problem of so many of your viewers. I don't want an aide for my son. I want him to be at school without an aide in a general education classroom. I think he could do it, just not in a class of 45. That is what his current junior high classes have. Is class size part of environment? Can't we request a smaller class size? School says no, but that is what would make my son more productive. Okay, that's a great question, and to some extent it folds into what I was going to talk about if we had time later today on the show, which is the trend I'm seeing, a strong trend in the direction of parents placing their kids in private school and suing the district for reimbursement. And a lot of the reason parents are having to do that is because the public schools don't have good programs for specific learning disabilities. And because the public schools don't have really trained behavior therapists who can effectively intervene in the classroom and on the playground and so on. This viewer is asking a related question. She's saying, do I have a right to have a school that has fewer, children in it, a classroom that has fewer children in it than a general ed classroom? So the first problem is that in California, the numbers of students in middle school and high school is overwhelming for everyone. The schools are too big. It's overwhelming for the teachers. They can't keep up. It's overwhelming for the administrators. It's overwhelming for the kids. And it produces a feeling, in my view, of alienation rather than being part of something that feels good. So class sizes are too large. And a class of 45 is too large for general ed students. So if your student needs a small class to be successful, a small general ed class to be successful, and he can't be able to succeed in a class of 45, you're right. Why would you make him become dependent on an aide if he could function perfectly well in a class of 25? So there's not going to be an appropriate special education classroom on his high school or middle school campus that's going to be exactly like a general ed class, except for there's going to be fewer kids. I mean, the districts try things like they'll have a class that has, usually called a co-lab. It'll be like a lot of general ed students, but then some special ed students, and then they'll have a general ed teacher and a special education teacher. But in that environment, you'd have to evaluate that class independently and see whether it was suitable or not. And if he needs a class that's purely general ed and is smaller, and that's the recommendation that's being made for him by a professional that you've worked with who's evaluated him, that's when we end up in the situation where parents are unilaterally placing their children in private schools and suing for tuition reimbursement. Because to get a student a class of general ed students where the numbers aren't so huge, certain parents are going to the private schools. And the private school tuition runs anywhere from, $15,000 to $60,000, and districts are getting pretty upset about the fact that more and more people are opting out of the public school system. But they don't want to opt out of the public school system, and they don't want to litigate. They want to have a real continuum of options. And since there isn't, if this is needed to provide FAPE and it's not available in the public schools, and the only way you can get them in a general ed class is to make it more restrictive by putting an aide in place, then I think that's a good place to start the discussion about how we do unilateral private placements. Now, I understand that this is not an option for a lot of people, because to pay for private tuition and engage an attorney at the same time is a significant financial undertaking. But I don't really have another way right now that I can think of to get that class for somebody. So that's my answer to question one.
Okay. I like it. Do you want to move on to the next one, and do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
I'll read it.
Okay.
But I want to say, I don't like this situation with the private schools at all. I don't like that there aren't enough good non-public schools that are out there. And the reason that's true is because the public schools have strangled the non-public schools and grossly underpaid them, and they can't create a robust program for a child like, with autism for $125 a day or whatever LAUSD pays. I hate telling parents, I have phone call now after phone call, and parents say, well, what schools are out there? And I say, I'm going to go down the list with you, and it's slim pickings. From San Diego to Santa Barbara, there are not enough appropriate schools. So I don't like the trend at all. It's very concerning to me, and it is clearly what's happening. Next question. We are making the decision to take our son out of diploma track. It's too stressful. but I'm absolutely adamant that he get to attend graduation and walk with the students in a cap and gown. They just don't have to give him a diploma. Do you have a right to that? Yes. That's an accommodation that you're entitled to under Section 504. And I would be very surprised if they treat him differently than the other students and they discriminate against him. Are you being told you can't have him walk? Because generally public schools are very good about that issue.
Okay. We've got about 3 minutes left, Bonnie. Do we want to move on to the next? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. My son recently hurt his aide when he was having a meltdown. Everyone who was there says it was clearly an accident and the aide got in the way at exactly the wrong moment. The aide is saying it was deliberate. He's threatening to sue the school and me personally. I wasn't even there. He can't do that, right? How do I work to keep my child at his school with this program, with all of this? Okay, well, presumably your son has a qualifying disability of autism, and if he hurt the aide while he was having a meltdown, there's no way that anybody's going to be able to come after you, okay? I mean, for one thing, the behavior is a manifestation of his disability. You can't punish him for that, but you don't have any individual liability. And if the aide is threatening to sue the school, she's probably unhappy in general in her relationship with them, because once you sue somebody, you're not going to want to work there. So that's sort of, to me, that's between her and the school. But it seems like she's hostile to your child now, and so it's probably going to be appropriate to replace her with somebody else. Maybe I can go really fast and finish the last question.
Okay.
That would make me really happy.
Okay.
Can we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
I have a 3-year-old with a recent ASD diagnosis. We want to put him in a CARD program for intensive ABA. School wants us to bring him for 8 hours a day. They're telling me I'm a bad parent. I feel like they're trying to intimidate me. What can I do? First of all, they'll never put in writing that you're a bad parent. Second of all, go read the 1987 Lovaas study, and I can talk to you more outside of this forum if you want. But the bottom line is, if you have a 3-year-old and you're lucky enough to be in a position to do full-time ABA with him, all the research says you should do that. And we can talk about what that looks like on another show when we have more time. But I'm never happier than when I get a 3-year-old in the office and I tell the parents, forget about public school. Do ABA. That's what the research indicates is effective. It's what I did with my son, with who had a very good result. When he was ready, he moved into a small private school with normal peers, and he had a one-to-one behaviorist with him, and he began his school journey that way. I just think you have to put their stuff on extinction. You're not a bad parent. You're an inquiring parent. This has worked great for me and a lot of other families who were lucky enough to get early intervention. 8 hours a day at school ain't going to do much for your 3-year-old, in my opinion.
But 8 hours of intensive quality ABA will do a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Get that ABA. Get that ABA while
Do
the
it.
brain is plastic.
That's right.
We got to go, right?
Yes, we do, but talk about Heerji and Chow really quick.
Heerji and Chow really quick, 310-391-0330. We'd love to hear from you. Next week, we're going to talk about private placements.
Okay, let's do it. Thank you so much for being with us. You have a wonderful day, Bonnie. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was the fabulous Bonnie Yates, special education attorney, and shout out to Heerji and Chow. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to bring you back an amazing mom who inspires me all the time, so stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome to the show. So the goal of today, we're going to make meatballs. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to take roughly a pound of my ground organic turkey, and I'm going to add in the secret vegetable. So if your kid doesn't like vegetables, don't cook in front of them, okay? Have them watch a movie or something. But you definitely want to make sure they're not watching, because then they won't eat it. So, and here we go with the egg. And our breadcrumbs. I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. If you think about kids' shapes and sizes, you want to think small shapes, small hands. So your oven should be preheating at about 400 degrees. We're gonna kick into the oven here and look at our meatballs. I did flip them halfway through the 20-odd minute. So we'll put, just like Julia Child's, there's our finished product right there. These are good. Cooking is easy. You don't have to be afraid of it. But we want to hear from you. If you can let us know what recipes are important to you, maybe convert a recipe from a traditional flour or gluten-based to a gluten-free or an allergy-free, we're here to help. So you get to us, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. You can reach out on Facebook at facebook.com/autismlive, or reach out at Taka Now. So I know you're having a great day. I had a lot of fun cooking with you in the kitchen, but I'll tell you, before we end, I gotta have more meatballs. Have a great day.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have a very special interview and we have very special guests in the show, and you're going to see some things that you don't normally see here. We've opened up the doors to the studio. We have a very amazing mom here, somebody who inspires me all the time, and her son is here with us as well, and he's in the studio. He just changed where the camera was pointing, which is all good and fabulous, because you know when you have kids, it's all about them, right? So
Indeed.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you are a mom who inspires me greatly.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So my name is Adriana Garza, and I am a mom to a beautiful autistic epileptic kiddo
And
who
he
is
is
all of
beautiful.
5, who is roaming around here.
He is totally, he's underneath the desk looking at my feet.
Doing new things with the studio.
And my shoes. He's going to be tickling my feet any minute now. But you know what? I think this is a great metaphor for our lives.
It is.
Because, you know, we do things a certain way, but then when our kids are there, it's like, the rules
real.
get changed. Because they're the fabulous people that they are. So you do inspire me on a regular basis, and you've had a very interesting journey, but I'm going to let you tell what you want to tell because we're here with other people watching. And of course, we're going to be fascinated with him because he's the most precious thing there is.
Let's start with getting that out of your mouth, please, Austin. He's got a string of some sort in his mouth.
Uh-oh.
Hey, buddy, let's take that out. Don't eat that, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome listening.
That was good. Yes.
So I actually just moved back to Los Angeles after being away 7 years because I was living in Texas where I was raised and where I'm from, and I had gone back to Austin. And when we began our journey with my son, I started to realize that in becoming part of a different abled life, because I'm not big on the term disabled.
Yeah.
So I started to realize that there was going to be a lot of obvious extra needs. I'm also not a huge fan of the term special needs because I feel like there's so much extra work that goes into his life.
Yes.
I am a born and raised Texan. I love that state, but it was very difficult to live there with our situation.
Yeah.
Extremely difficult. The therapy that 3 doctors that didn't know each other that all recommended that they said if he does 40 hours of ABA a week, this kid will recover. They all said it in different forms, but they all said the same thing. And I went to Medicaid and was like, I need ABA.
Yeah.
And I was new
and
to all
like
of it.
40 hours.
Yeah.
You know, since that's what the doctors told me, right?
And they were like, we don't cover ABA. And that's kind of when the journey really began because it was a matter of what I was able to do at the time through the Health and Human Services Commission was get him on a 2-day-a-week grant.
Right.
Right. 3.5 hours, 2 times a week was a different child.
Yeah.
So I knew at that moment with that grant and the changes that Austin had experienced and that we all had experienced as a family, that those 40 hours are crucial.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you started that grant that you know, a couple of times a week was just for 6 months. And
Yes,
then
correct.
that was going to come to an end. And then at that time you had to wait 6 months, and then the next 6 months you could apply to do that again.
for
but
just
6
twice a
months
week.
on,
Yeah.
6 months
Mhm.
off.
For just twice a
Because there's no study that shows that works.
Right.
But let's do it that way,
Right.
right? Because that's what the budget could do.
Right.
So so then what happens?
So but I have to say that in that situation, because there's always a blessing in every situation, that's how I found out about CARD. Because I remember that 2-page list of people that Austin could potentially go to for ABA in Austin, Texas. And I remember sitting at home just with the newness of everything. calling everyone and finding no grant, and finally hitting card and finding that there was, you know, a way through this while I figured out the rest. So card is forever in my heart because it was the only place in Austin at the time, we're talking 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that took it. So you're right. So when the grant does 6 months on, 6 months off, 2 days a week, it's not, the progress is not going to be like what the doctor said because it wasn't the 40 hours.
But you were still seeing progress, enough to make you
Well, I was doing a lot of follow through too.
Yes.
So that, which is very important in ABA. Yes. So I had to do what any mom would do, any mama bear that is seeing success in their son, and the state's unfortunately not meeting them where they need to be met. So as some of you may know, I started doing fundraisers. I started out with GoFundMe, and then I started, because what needed to happen is I needed to put through his disability, he got Medicaid, but I needed to put a secondary policy in place to cover that ABA therapy, which obviously is a lot of money. So, and as a single mom was, you know, a very tricky road, but I knew that I could figure it out.
And you guys who are watching, I mean, we have a lot of families in Texas that are have this same thing happen, and I always use you as an example of when there's a will, there's a way. It's a lot of work, a lot of stress, but you said we are going to figure this out.
Because of the inspiring differences. I mean, this is a kid who, right now as I'm watching his energy in the space, I am thrilled that that he has the space to be who he is, two, also the differences. This is a kid who would go home and circle for 2 hours straight before I knew everything. And I was like, not sure what's happening, but he has a lot of energy. He circles and circles. Hi.
Huh? And he's off. I thank you for stopping in for a visit.
The differences were so huge that I was going to figure out a way to make this happen for him. You know, he didn't look you in the eye. He didn't point. He didn't wave. All the questions they ask you at 18 months, is he doing this, this, and this? And you're like, nope, he's not doing this. He started doing that. And so I thought, this is with 2 days a week, and I'm starting to see change. So that's why the GoFundMe came in. Then I reached out to some friends here in Los Angeles and started an auction with some items and was able to cover him for a little over a year.
And to be clear, though, you took that money and purchased
a secondary
policy with that money
because
that allowed
Medicaid,
you to. Because a lot of people get confused on this and think, I got to raise this amount of money to cover the therapy.
$21,500 is what it cost a month.
Okay.
So you've got to raise for the secondary policy.
So what you do is you raise money for the policy, which is still a chunk of change, but it's not $21,000 a month.
Correct.
And then once you have the policy, sometimes you have to raise money for the copay or the deductibles.
Well, that's where I received a lot of great information from you and Card and about the grants. That's where the other grants making me a little nervous.
He's on a
Austin.
He's on a He's
Austin
good, though.
Enrique. Cuidado, por favor.
Oh.
You found something.
Yes.
Siéntate bien. Gracias.
Thank you so much.
That's where I found out about the United Healthcare grant, and all these things are very tricky, but they're all, I was awarded the grant, so I was able to put towards its co-payments. It's just a lot of jumping through hoops, but hoops that are entirely worth it when you're talking about a kid's development, when you're talking about the journey that we're on, which we're not on the typical. I struggle, Shannon, because I'm not a big fan of all the words, neurotypical, all the, disabled, all that stuff, but we aren't on that journey. We're on a different journey. And this village of tribe that you need to make things happen is doable. But the reality of why I'm sitting here today is because I did get sick. And I did develop Hashimoto thyroid disease. And I did develop mild tachycardia. And had to take the Attorney General to court. And there was a lot of stuff that happened. And I was able to do it. But the one thing that I think we know is how healthy we need to be there for their journey and everything that it entails. Right now we're experiencing a random bout, almost out of nowhere, extreme rise in elopement. So I have to be ready to run at any moment.
Yeah, and that's stressful.
Very.
But
I mean, my friend sees me ready, it's a.
But here's the other thing is that, multiple studies have shown how stressful that is. But the other thing that we've seen recently out of studies is that the number one stressor is having to fight all the things that you've had to do to be able to gain access for what you are told by experts is what your child needs. Not like somebody who's got some far out idea, multiple experts saying this is what's needed, this is what's required, and then having to fight for it.
Researched here at UCLA. I mean, there's all this evidence that this is what works for kids on the spectrum. But sorry, we're not there right now, so we're not going to cover it, and we're going to hope for the best for your kid. And it's like, well, what you're offering as the best is not what my son deserves. So that's ultimately what it came down to. But I didn't want to be sick anymore, and I wanted to be happy and enjoy the journey.
It's totally fine. He can totally pull that right off the wall.
And there goes the studio.
No, it's just foam, you guys. For those of you watching, there's this texture foam on the wall, and he's pulling it off. It's all good.
Texture.
We've had it pulled off before. We can put it back up.
Thank you.
Not a problem. So he's found a new cushion. Yes. This is the thing.
This will probably be on the floor with him any minute.
It's got like almost like a Velcro thing that sticks it to the wall. So he's doing a
too.
The next time I move studios and I need it torn down, I'm calling him.
Call him, please.
Because he did that faster
I'll
than
drop
I
him
can
off
get it down, right? He can help me get the whole studio in shape. You did a good job on that. And now he's having a great time playing with that. So yes.
So I don't want to be sick. I want to be happy, and that is the number one cause, I think, was I've never been this sick. I've never had my thyroid. It's supposed to be a 9. It was a 900. It's starting to come down already. My mild tachycardia got to 124, like my heart rate, just from all the stress of also trying, like the resources that I found were outside the state, like the grants and everything that I had to do was not. Just the state itself became very limiting. So for me, it wasn't entirely easy, but I had lived here before, so it wasn't like I was going somewhere I didn't know of. And
we should say, I mean, people always say, do what you have to do. And, I wish that people would start to realize that that should not mean that a family has to move. But in some cases, people do move so that they can gain access to the services and not have to fight as much.
I will tell you the two things it came down to, and there goes the camera.
It's all right. It's all
Two things it came down to. I could continue where I was, and I knew that I could continue getting him the things that I needed.
Yeah.
But I will be very honest. I was in court more than I've ever been in my life. I had to learn how to represent myself because the Attorney General gave you 30 days to file for a motion for a new trial. I had, on several occasions, picked up the phone and said to my mom, I'm going home. I dropped him off at Card. Can you please call me in a little while? I'm not sure. And this sounds drastic, but this was the reality of our life there. I'm not sure what's going to happen when I lay down to rest. So I need you to check on me in a few hours.
Yeah.
So the choices became, do I continue down that route? And everybody on his team at Austin Westlake saw it firsthand. I mean, me just walking in there completely, I have color in my face now, just because I'm in a place now where there's absolute hope and absolute resources, and I don't have to bang on doors and keep grabbing ones that won't open in hopes that I can somehow just yank it open. Now I go and I knock and they're like, hey, it'll be 30 to 60 days, but we've got you. And I'd rather wait 30 to 60 days and have solutions for his journey.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, did you put it in your mouth?
Are you ready for something to play with?
Did he taste that pad?
Uh-oh.
Bab's over there watching you. She's going to
say hello?
Yeah.
Say hello? Hello? Who's there? Who's there? Answer your phone. Who's there on your phone? Hello?
Anybody there?
Anybody there?
He's like, any videos for me?
Is it time yet? Because we were trying to download something for him before.
Nope.
Did you look and see? Did it show up yet? Is it there yet?
It's not.
Oh. Why did it come to that one? That's not the one I asked for. So he's awesome.
He's doing amazing.
But you're going through that transition period, and this is not the easy time, but you've made this bold choice, and you've come to California to see if you can't get more working.
We're already, the change is already happening. So I'm a big believer in signs. And so in July, after already having been through 1 year of 5 court cases, 4 out of 5, which I won, but still was incredibly stressful to get to that point and represent yourself and go to court pro se and deal with all that. They cut his disability. So I was like, well, if there's ever been a sign, it's now. I cannot take on this fight that deteriorates my health anymore. And so far, everything has been, like, regional center's been out to the house already. Disability has updated his information, everything. And everything has been like, hey, 30 to 60 days and it'll fall into place.
Yeah.
It's a very different feeling than maybe it will happen, maybe it won't.
Right,
You know,
right.
so, and again, coming back to a place where I have friends here that are like
Yeah.
family, because I was here 16 years and they have opened up their homes and space to him and been incredible with him, so.
And this isn't going to be everybody's potential, right? Because you had a place to come to, but even so, this
Even
is,
if you don't,
this is
such a world of
ginormous and
difference.
brave of you to do this. And I wanted to give you some time here to talk about it because I know that there's families that are watching that are feeling the desperation of, I don't know what to do, I don't have access, I'm
His
not sure what
case
to do.
manager said that when she was talking to me about the change and the things that were going to take into place and how long things, she said, I had a family move last week to California.
Well, I know that when my son was diagnosed, and I was like, what do we do? Where do we go? Where do we need to be? And it seemed like to me that living in Los Angeles, which is one of the most expensive places on the face of the earth, I was like, should we move? It was one of the first things out of my mouth. And somebody said to me, no, under no circumstances should you move. Do whatever you can to stay here right now because there are families moving here to gain access to the services that you will, I know.
We are in 550 square feet, but the sacrifice is, you know, there's parks and there's plenty to go do outside, and that outweighs everything we're going to get in exchange, outweighs the limiting space right now.
And we have had more time here in California where there were services in place so that there are also all these other things to go along with services.
The regional center only exists in California.
Yeah, well, so, you know, but it is, I know you're amazing, so you have set things up and have things in motion, but that's no small task.
But
that's
listen,
no small task.
While I appreciate the compliment, and I always say to people, they're like, how do you do it? And I'm like, to meet Austin is to know love and is to know that he's worth everything that I can do, but it hasn't happened by me doing it by myself. It's happened because of Jessica Smith and Chris Gibson and Larissa and Tracy Monterosa and the wonderful lady sitting across from me who would take my phone calls when I would say, you know, I'd hit a dead end. Oh, well, have you tried the United Healthcare grant? You know, have you tried this? Have you tried that? There was always, this is a tribe.
It is a
tribe.
tribe.
This is a tribe. I mean, yes, I appreciate what you're saying, but for me, it's also realistic to say, like, this, I couldn't do this alone. I couldn't.
But I will say this, that, you know, we are here, and I think part of my mission is to make sure that I give information to families so that they can, you know, at least have the information, right?
I know.
But everybody isn't capable of taking the advice. Everybody isn't capable of the follow-through, and I know this. There's no judgment, but you are somebody who takes everything and says, I'm going to find a way. So we maybe give you advice, but then you learn from it and you come back, and then I've been able to take that and give that to other people and say, here's what she found out. She went and did this, and here's where that got her, and people are following you. You're making snowshoe prints for people to follow, which is an amazing thing.
Because I'm going to say it again, people were holding my hand along the way and guiding me.
We can't wait to see all, you know, we got to have you back in a couple of months, and hopefully your health is going to be better, and he'll have his full complement of services, and you'll be able to tell your story. You know you're going to have to write a book. Well, you know that, right?
I always say I have to write his story, but I think, yeah, you're getting frustrated, but I think it's maybe, I'll say it here for the first time, maybe it's our story, not just his, because I keep saying I'm going to write his, but I think ultimately it's our journey.
Did it finally download?
No, something happened, but it's not playing anything. So.
Oh dear. All right.
That's where we're seeing the frustration kick in, and I get it.
Yeah, I would be frustrated too. But he's been very good while
Listen,
we've
if I was
had
trying to
this
watch.
time. I kind of love this. I would love for us to have an Autism Live lounge, like in my dream of dreams, right? To have a lounge where it's all safe and the cameras are up, mounted high, and moms can sit and their kids can play, and therapists can be there, and we can see how that all interacts and happens, and talk. Like, that's my long-term dream, because this is, I'm sure when you get together with girlfriends, this is what it looks like, right?
It does. Oh, it
Except
does.
not cameras that draw the children over to that.
Well, my lovely friend that's here today has the most amazing backyard, and that's what I meant by when we got here, our friends have given him so much amazing and loving space. He was out there like it was a water park, and she put the sprinkler out there for him, and he ran back and forth.
Amazing.
And Bev and her husband just let him run around everywhere, and be soaked in water and be a kid, and that space.
Which is what everybody needs, right? It's everything. Well,
I look at some of his pictures of the fun, and I was like, hey, if I was rolling around in foam and soaking in water, I'd be stress-free too.
Yeah, well, maybe you should get out there with him.
Yeah.
You should get out there with him.
Well, if I didn't get arrested, I would definitely go for it. I don't know how well they take my version of it.
Anyway, but I'm so excited for you. I'll be honest, I have fear for you because this is a big change, but I'm excited that you took the bull by the horns and that you're doing okay, and you got to reach out to us when you need something.
Hey,
obviously.
I have fear, but I know that this was what was going to be in his best interest in the long run, because I was also thinking of what environment I wanted him to grow up in.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if he's going to talk, if he's not going to talk. We don't know anything, and I thought, where also will he be accepted exactly where he's at and met where he's at? And there was no, I've lived here 16 years, there was no other place for me than here.
Well,
But don't worry, that fear
is a precious
my mom's
boy.
got that fear. I'm sure Bev has that fear. I have that fear, but we're going to walk through that fear and get to the other side.
Exactly, because that's what it takes, that level of bravery.
You've heard, right? Fear knocked.
Oh, I have not heard that.
Faith answered.
Okay.
So
all right, and there we have it.
as tricky as it can be some days, I will keep going.
I had said to them at the beginning of the show that this show is airing on Labor Day, and we don't normally do a show on Labor Day, but I thought how super fun, for us to do this. And so just want to put it out there to people that if you're watching and if there's something that you're afraid of doing that is what your child really needs to do, take a look at it. Everybody cannot do everything, right? But ask yourself what you can do and what support you would need to do it. And we're going to keep monitoring your story and look back at this and see all the progress that he makes when you got a full program going and aren't having to fight tooth and nail to do it.
I will help you, but I'm talking to Shannon right now.
That's the thing that has to be first and foremost.
Right? Yes.
That's manding. Right there, you just saw that.
That is a gift of card right there in action.
There you go.
I cannot thank
He
hard
just
enough.
requested some help. So we're going to end show here because we've gone a little bit over, but I just want to say thank you
and
to
I? Shocking. Talking too much?
No, how could that happen? I just want to thank everybody for being here with us on this holiday. I hope you grab whatever you need for yourself today, even if it's for 5 minutes to, just breathe and center yourself, or to go play in a sprinkler with your kid. And just have whatever that is, because we're getting ready to enter that fall, and it's going to look a little bit different, but it'll be fun too. So we will be back here tomorrow with a best of, and I have a list somewhere here, but I think I threw it away. No, here's what's happening this week. He's like, no, the show is over now. You said it was over. So tomorrow, best of. Then on Wednesday, Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, we're told, will be here. On Thursday, we have autism expert Daniel Jordan, and Joshua Margetts from the Yummy Nutrition Company is going to be here with us, talking about gummies that are that help for sleep. So that'll be really cool. Then on Friday, we have holistic healing practitioner Ann Brown and Aaron Wright, author of Daisy Has Autism. Daisy is not who you think Daisy is. I'm just going to say that. So all of that is happening the rest of this week. Make sure that you're here with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give yourselves a hug for me and one for your kiddo too. Bye-bye for now.